Righto, the lads just keep coming in. Today is no different as we have one of the most all-time requested lads on the podcast. Throughout his career, he's been one of the most recognisable figures with his facial hair and hairstyles, and he was always one of the fans' favourite, playing for Manawatu, Taranaki, the Hurricanes, and of course the mighty All Blacks. He also spent some time in Japan before heading over to France, where he became a La Rochelle legend. He achieved all that while always being an absolute lad who loved his beer and a good time. It is the great man himself, Jason Eaton. Welcome, mate.
Hell of an intro. Thanks, mate.
Mate, you were looking great. Facial hair as good as always.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I was actually thinking about this morning watching the All Blacks play the USA. I was watching that and looking at all the hairdos. I was like, look at that. That's like, I did that like 15 years ago, having the old mullet. I wouldn't do it if everyone else was doing it. I did it when no one was doing it.
You did it to be different.
Yeah, I do it to be different, not to follow the crowd. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I had Liam Squire on last week, and he sort of felt like he was a little bit ahead of his time as well. But, mate, you were 5+ years ahead of him, so you really started the trend.
It was a shocking one. And then, then you got my old flatmate Andrew Keith Hall told me when I got injured when he got injured, busted his shoulder, he goes, I didn't shave or cut my hair until I played again. So I was like, I'll do that too. And that was when I first grew out the big beard and long hair and stuff. So, yeah, I don't know what excuses now.
And do you love it? Do you still love having your big beard?
Well, I've always said this, like, I do like growing a beard because I hate shaving, I feel like it's a real time waster and a bit of a drag, Like, it's so much easier to have, or not to shave. It's a lot easier to do that than worry about everything and going to the, barber every 2 weeks like some guys do. And I think I enjoy the beard. I think I suit it, so it comes and goes. I tend to grow it for a year and then chop it off and start again.
You got so much more time for other things now that you don't have to shave.
Exactly. Well, you think that's a few minutes each. Well, it depends how often you shave, I guess. I don't even shave when I'm on a building site.
Does it ever get itchy for you? How do you get past that phase? Because that's where I always get stuck. I let it grow till it gets itchy, which is roughly about 3 weeks.
That's a very common question around the beard. I get itchy from week 2 to week 3, 4. But then once you pass that, it's fine. It sort of grows on your hair, a bit like pubes, I guess, It's just sort of, curly in your face. But no, I mean, it becomes like soft and not so scratchy after a while, once they're long enough. But I guess it's just have that discipline to get through.
And what's your routine with it? Do you have to clean it, or like how often would you clean it? Do you use any oils or anything?
I guess now, like, I actually wash my hair, and when I do that, I wash my beard, and I run a conditioner through it as well.
Yeah.
And I've actually, like, previously, I never oiled. Of recent note, or like the last year or two, I've actually got the oils onto it, and more just for the skin underneath. You don't really get to clean the skin, and just trying to, and it smells a bit nicer too. That always helps.
Mate, that is good insight to start the podcast on growing facial hair. Oh, great start.
It's pretty easy, just don't shave.
It'll get there. Not everyone gets that growth like you, though. Anyway, so most people will think that you're retired, but mate, rumour tells me you were running around club rugby last season. Talk me through this.
How did I get involved there? No, so I think coming out of the very first lockdown in 2020, I felt like I was being a bit more of too much of a hermit. I was just staying at home and not really getting out and involved with people, and sort of had a career change as well. And I thought a good way to connecting with people was get back into club rugby. So a good friend of mine, Michael Barnes, I was involved with the Old Boys University Club here in Wellington, and I reached out to him and said, "Oh, mate, I'm keen to come along and just sort of, just help out and keep an eye on the line-outs sort of thing of the senior team, and basically connect with people and get a few connections going and that sort of thing." And then I think at that stage I'd signed up to play the was it the Parliamentarian team? Also, I was playing for the Centurions against Parliamentarian, the one that Ashley Bloomfield played in. So I had that game coming up, and then I turned up to my first training to look at the OBU sort of seniors and that. And the reserve coach, Paul Swift, yells out to me and goes, says g'day and goes, "Oh, mate, you got that game in a couple of weeks again, the Parliamentarian game. I think you need a run before that, eh? What do you reckon? We're short this weekend." I was like, "Well, actually, you got a good point. I wouldn't mind dusting off the cobwebs." So I was like, "Yeah, fair enough. I'll come along." And I got about 20 minutes that first game, and then played that Parliamentarian game, and then kept turning up to trainings. And same old story with club footy these days. Everyone's short, and keep saying, chances again this week. I was like, no, I can't. I've got nothing else on. And next thing you know, I'm playing pretty much every game. But absolutely loved it. Especially playing for like the reserve team was, the level that I was comfortable playing. All the guys here are there for the right reasons, and there for a bit of social time, and love playing footy and competing and that. So suited me down to a T. And then actually I think I won my first final of my career with the reserve side in 2020. I was playing off a fifth place, but it was a final nonetheless.
They all count.
I reckon some of the boys are still partying a year on actually for that. So that sort of sets the tone of why I was involved. But again, 2021, I again reached out to them and said, or they reached out to me this year and sort of said, you keen to come along? And I'll say, I'm keen to help out, but less playing and sort of more of the coaching side of things for the reserve side, and sort of helped out when I could. And I was a bit busier this year, so I did don the boots maybe 2 or 3 times and enjoyed it. I sort of, with the reserve side, I sort of had a couple of rules for them though. If I was playing, I said, look, if there's someone else that's fit that can play, they play ahead of me. I don't want to take anyone else's spot. And the second rule was I don't want to play 80 minutes. I'm comfortable coming off the bench, which was awesome, which I think suited them as well. And we had a great time. I enjoyed it. I don't know whether I'll keep turning up. We'll see what happens, come whenever the season starts next year, March or something. Might get itchy feet again.
That's so awesome. So your body's obviously good. Like you've had a massive career, and your body's still sweet to be able to play rugby at that level.
The body's not what it was, 20 years ago or whatever it was. But obviously, and decent enough neck to jog around, and I'm pretty sore after a game, even if it's 20 minutes or so. Like it's pretty tiring, and obviously you don't have the training load behind me either, like leading into it. Especially when you just rock up, no training into the game. But I was pretty lucky. I had a couple of big injuries and that, but no long-term effects, and I've managed to stay reasonably fit post-rugby. I haven't blown out like some others, and I was really conscious of that actually when coming towards the end of my career to try and change my habits around eating and obviously trying to keep fit, but without actually doing too much fitness, if that makes sense. I was never keen on the gym during my career. I only really went in the gym because it was part of our job, not because I enjoyed it. Yeah. Same with running. I've never enjoyed running, so since then I've sort of taken up a bit of cycling, and but it's getting a bit hard with with my job at the minute. I don't really have too much time to do cycling and stuff, but keep pretty fit on the job site. So I've been pretty lucky, I guess, in that regard.
So how did your rugby career finish? Because I read somewhere that it was a head knock, but how true is that one?
That's commonly most people in New Zealand think that I retired because of concussions. I think there was an article published at some stage saying I retired because of head knocks. It sort of coincided with one another. I was always going to retire that season. So I sort of decided I think think it was about January when I actually decided and announced it, and then maybe February or March. Actually, I think it was late March. I got a head knock that rocked me quite a bit, and the season's only a couple of months later when it was when it was finished. So I didn't really come back from that head knock in time to play the last game or anything. So sort of looks like I've retired because of the head knock, but I was always going to be. So no long-term effects from the concussion, but I tell you, it's probably the scariest injury I actually received, I guess. A lot of other guys out there a lot of Naki guys especially that have retired early because of it. And, obviously I was fortunate that those guys had gone through it before, and I was quite aware of, obviously, the dangers and that. So I was, obviously, when I decided to retire too, I was in no rush to get back. I was keen to play that one last game sort of thing and have a bit of a send-off, but I wasn't going to risk anything for that.
And you went straight into coaching with La Rochelle at the time, was that right?
On paper, I guess, I did. There's a bit of a story there. French rugby is quite funny. I think it was that last game of the season I was playing as a player that there was a bit of an argument that very last game between the head coach and the other coaches and stuff. And we played that game, and then obviously the season's finished. And I think it got to a point where the head coach was like, well, either to the club, it's either you get rid of the other clubs or I'm leaving. And so the head coach left. He still had a couple of years on his contract, so he sort of quit out of nowhere. And I always planned to stay on in France for a while and take it easy and try and transition a little bit easier out of rugby, and see a little bit of Europe as well, and obviously set up things with my partner before she moved from France to New Zealand. And so obviously the coach quit, and then the club were like, well, we don't really have a coach, and we'd like you to stay around and stay alongside the boys and help transition them from last season to the next one. And so they had a contract I think the role was like as a transition guy or something like that. I don't even know what the word was, but I was like, well, if I'm going to be involved, I want to actually be hands-on. So I ended up signing a coaching contract. So it's just an assistant coach, really. I mean, they had the old coaches sort of stepped up as head coach and that sort of stuff, and which proved very challenging. It definitely helped my French, actually, because all French coaches and that, so I actually for once had to speak French full time, and it was a bit of an eye-opener, sort of seeing how the other side sort of works. And obviously the French side is very challenging, like coming up with good ideas, what you think are good ideas, and just getting that's not the way we do things, and just getting shut down and sort of like, oh, what am I doing here? It's sort of wasting my time. So it got to a point where actually I did actually go on holiday during one of our breaks, and then sort of got told pretty much, if you don't want to come back, you don't have to. So I was like, oh, sweet. Wish I booked a longer holiday now, but I mean, I was going to stay till sort of Christmas time. So this is early November. So by that sort of stage, I checked out anyway, and they ended up hiring Johnny Gibbs, who was doing the Waikato season and then coming over. So he sort of arrived as I left, and so that was a bit of an eye opener into coaching and managerial side of things.
Did you enjoy it?
It was challenging, obviously, going straight from playing into the same environment as a coach. I sort of didn't really know where I sat in the scheme of things. I don't know where my sort of allegiances sort of lay, or who to sit with, and it was quite a confusing time. And obviously I had that sort of transition role, but a coach, and and trying to work out actually where I fit. It was quite challenging, but I mean, I as a player, I spoke to a lot of guys that were keen for me to be a coach, but I never really had aspirations for it. Always wanted to, when I finished playing, I wanted to have a separation from playing. If I got involved in coaching, I wanted to do it straight away. I saw it as sort of, you're sort of chasing the same rugby player's dream. And by that stage, I'd had enough of living overseas and going where the work was. I was keen to come home and spend time with my son in Wellington and try and set up my life outside of rugby, away from rugby. And then, if coaching did come along, well, it was something I was interested in. It would come along on the side of whatever I'd done, which is I'm still not there. I guess with Old Boys University, they're pretty open to me just helping out when I can, which might be one train in a month or a couple of games here or there, and that. And I think they're pretty happy with that. But which I'm pretty fortunate to have. And then maybe in the future, who knows? But for now, I see coaching as you've got to go where the work is, and there's actually not a lot of jobs out there that are in the coaching side of things that you can do full time and get paid decent coin as well. It's quite a challenge.
How hard was it to set up your life outside of rugby? You mentioned coming back to New Zealand and setting up your life first. So how hard's that been?
It's a huge challenge. Everyone's got a different story about it. I think that the best thing that I sort of thought about leading into it was I knew that it was going to be tough.
Yeah.
So my expectation was it's going to be tough and challenging and all that sort of stuff. So there was no real big surprises around it. So that's why I sort of planned to stay in Europe for 6 months or so and sort of have a bit of a break and a holiday and sort of ease into it, and then sort of had different focuses, which was part of my transition, I guess. Was moving back to New Zealand was first one was trying to get back into my son's life more regularly, and obviously transition my partner, who's French, into New Zealand way of life and that sort of stuff. And I sort of had all these other focuses more than on myself. Yeah. And then it's probably about 6 months I was back in New Zealand, and then it sort of started kicking in like, I've actually got to sort myself out and, get back out involved in things and actually find a job, which I guess the hardest thing around that for me was I've never really known what I wanted to do, or still don't. So when you start to look for a job, it's like, well, where do I start looking? So I was looking every day at all the job listings and that, and applying for like stock take jobs and stuff just to get me out of the house. And I didn't end up doing anything like that. But I guess that was the biggest challenge for me was, and it still is, trying to sort out what it is I actually want to do. It's a good question. I still don't know what I want to do.
So how did building come into it? Because now you are working on a building site, doing your apprenticeship, right?
That's the one. I guess so. Within that first 6 months, I was on a stag do for a mate of mine, Rob Hamilton stag do, and one of our mates as well was on there, is James Annabelle, who owns a honey company, and he sort of mentioned that I could have a role for him selling honey, which I thought sales was a really good role to be in from a rugby background, obviously using the connections and the persona of a rugby player helps with the sales. So I got stuck into that for about 9 months, and then it sort of come to an end. On both sort of ends, the company and myself sort of parted ways by the end, and then that led into the first lockdown of COVID in 2020, and sort of that whole time was a big time for reflection, I guess, and try and sort out actually what I wanted to do. And obviously, 6 weeks you're living at home, and It was just me and my partner, and actually her mother was actually over visiting for a month. That turned into 3 months. So it was a bit of a time to reflect on things, and one of those things was sales.
Yeah,
I didn't feel it sat with me, my personality, that well. Like, I'm pretty laid back, and then I don't really like forcing people to, pushing the case for people to buy honey or whatever it is. It's sort of not in my nature. So I was like, it's probably not suited for me. So I sort of, sat there going, what am I interested in? And like most rugby players, are sort of interested in property and that. So I started researching a few things and quite a few jobs out there in property management and, obviously property development and all that sort of stuff is something I'm interested in. And then everyone I spoke to is like, yeah, it's awesome, but if you want to do that, you sort of got to know what you're doing first. And suggested I start from the bottom. I was like, oh, I don't mind doing that. So, I'll do my apprenticeship. So I researched around and found a good company in Wellington, and that's it's been about a year or so now, maybe just over a year since I first started with them and getting stuck into the apprenticeship, it's been awesome. I've really enjoyed it. Coming from the sales job to this one, there's a bit more physicality, which obviously sits well with the background of a rugby player, and being hands-on and obviously building, creating things sits well with me. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. Obviously, there's days like any job where you absolutely hate, like you spend a day on the shovel. It's not that nice after 9 hours, but on the whole, I find that I'm really enjoying it, and I'm pretty happy of of the decisions I've made, sort of in this career path. And saying that, still, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in 5 years or so, but for the moment, I'm really happy. And I always sort of said this about it. It's like, well, if I don't like building, I'm still learning, really good life skills and things that are handy. I'll be able to fix things a bit more. And if that's the worst thing that comes out of this, then it's a win. So
100%.
That's been my sort of theme on it.
Does your height come in handy on the building site, or is that a bit of a negative?
Both. Both. So
no ladders required.
Where do I start? Negatives. Negatives. I hit my head a lot. Scaffolding's designed to be this high, and so it's about this high. So I'm hitting my head all the time, and things like that. Or obviously, like what's another example? Like I found myself one day on a roof trying to nail joists down below my feet. And just struggled, just to get down that low, and obviously a couple of bad knees as well doesn't help. But you're stuck up there, so you sort of do what you can do. And then I look around these other little fellas that non-rugby guys are just scampering up and down the roof, and just bending over and just doing it with ease and taking the piss out of me. But then I was like, well, get me doing something else. You'll need to go get a ladder, and you won't be able to reach it. So. Stick to your strengths.
That's it. Oh, that's good stuff. It's awesome to hear how that transition's gone, and good to hear that you're going well and enjoying that building side of things. But anyway, we need to get back to the start for the Jason Eaton story. What was growing up like for you?
I say it's pretty typical, but I guess everyone probably say that. Pretty typical childhood. Grew up on a farm in the Manawatu, near Pohongina there. So I was the third child, two older brothers, and a bit of a rugby family. So we're out playing sports every waking moment, pretty much. Well, that was my plan anyway. Try and keep my older brothers happy as much as you can playing sports. So they'd come out and play as long as you can. When you get a bit older, sort of. Maybe get out a bit easier in the cricket so they get a turn, and so they stay out there a bit longer so you keep playing. It's sort of a balancing act. I don't think they'd like to hear that, but I just want to be out there all day. playing rugby and cricket and everything else that came up with growing up on a farm. So I mean, I got stuck into rugby from, well, the story that my mum told me was that obviously two older brothers, so when they were playing, I just joined in and kept up with them. So when I was 3, I think is when they said I started playing. So it wasn't hurting anyone or wasn't getting hurt, so they said, "Oh, you can go." So started pretty young and played every year.
Were you tall?
I was tall. I mean, I've always been pretty tall. Obviously, there's that stage during, around puberty and that where, people shot up at different stages and stuff. But apart from that, I was always sort of, back row of the photos and that sort of things. So I've always had a bit of height and a bit of size.
And were you always a lock, like through your age grades?
No, I probably my first actual full season as a lock would have been when I was 15, I reckon.
Oh, yeah.
Growing up, I was always a first 5, actually.
Oh, there
when
he is.
I was young. My oldest brother, Brett, he was a halfback, so he was very keen on working on his pass. And being a first 5 was perfect because I was catch him and, I worked on my kicking and all that sort of stuff. And so I was first 5 up until probably about intermediate age, and then sort of got moved to this, second 5 and a little bit of fullback at high school and that. And then had one season at blindside, I think at 14, at 4 form. Once obviously the height actually came about, like proper height, and going, oh, that's where the future's going to be. So, which was just quite challenging. Like, it took me a number of years to actually put my head in the right places. So, I still thought I was a back, even though I was, a different number on my back. But sort of at school, I wasn't always the best player, but it turned out okay at the end.
How tall were you at school? Like because you went to Palmy Boys, right? Were you first 15?
My last year was first 15, and sort of towards the end of my sixth form year. It's it was a bit of a funny old story at school. I back then in the Manor 2 sort of secondary schools era was the trials for Manor 2 secondary schools was the Palmy Boys first 15 against the best of the rest. So in my sixth form year, I was in the second 15. So I was playing against the first 15.
Oh, true.
With the other lock, Hayden Hazlitt, from the second 15. And then we actually got picked in the Manor 2 secondary schools, both of us, playing against the first 15. So it's like, oh, how does this work? And then the next year, same thing happened, but I was in the first 15 this year, and it was me and Lloyd Budd were the main locks for the first 15, and we trialled against the best of the rest. And our coaches were like, "Oh, you guys will get in easy. We'll give the other guys a bit of a run." Which was, I think it was again Hayden and Ed Pearce. I think was the other 2 locks who got a run, and so they played us for the first quarter, and then played the other guys. I think the other guys got in and we didn't. And it's just like, oh, what do you do? So, the high school's a bit of a funny old one. But, I always look back and I think high school rugby is probably the most intense, passionate rugby I've ever played in. Like, I think it's just an age thing where you think you're better than you are, and it's the be-all and end-all, like playing first 15 rugby, and obviously such traditional games, you're playing for the Pulse and Banner or against Napier Boys or Napier Men's, as they'll say, and or playing against New Plymouth Boys at the Gully Ground there in New Plymouth, and having the whole school there doing the haka on the side. And it is really special, and at the time you think you've made it. And it's probably the most nervous I actually got before rugby games was probably back then. Yeah, it's very, very intense. I guess you might get that a bit at Nelson. It's the same, is it?
Yeah, 100%. I'm the same as you. I used to get probably more nervous for those games than any other game. I remember first game like at Jade Stadium and things like that, just so nervous about the big game.
Oh, you got to play at Jade. Jeepers. Flash school, mate. Big time.
It's no gully though, is it? The gully's one of the greats.
No gully. That's one of a kind.
So was rugby always like your dream? Was it always to make it as a professional?
No, I guess at high school, I growing up as a kid, I was mad on rugby.
Yeah.
Like, posters on the wall, like everything. I watched every game that I could. Played in the morning, ball boyed for club rugby and all sorts of things. I was mad about it. Then I guess in my teenage years, I sort of got a bit sick of it, but still loved playing. So I still trained and played and that. And then obviously through the high school career, I was keen on playing rugby, but I never thought, this is what I'm going to do for a career or anything like that. I'll just keep playing and keep enjoying it. I thought, maybe it might be a chance, but it wasn't a real big focus. So I left school, and I remember my mother telling me to find a job or go to uni. I was like, don't know what I'm going to do for work. I still don't. But so I went to uni and followed everyone there, and joined a club, Field and Yellows, joined them, and just absolutely loved playing club rugby and there in Manawatu. And then my second year, I think I got to make the Manawatu side, and this is back in, what year are we talking now, 2002?
Div 2 at the time?
Div 2, yeah, so Manawatu playing second division. So I was getting paid at this stage, but it was like $200 for a win.
Yeah.
Before tax.
What about a loss?
No money for a loss.
Oh, true. Only if you won.
It was just, I think we had I signed a contract. It might have been like $2,000 for the season.
Yeah, and then $200 if
and
you
then
won.
$200 win bonus, and then it might have gone to $400 or $200 for a playoff, and an extra $200 for a win or something like that. Or I don't know, something like that. Anyway,
Yeah.
And which was awesome being a student, because I'd have no money all year, and work all summer, try and save up money to get through the year, and come Manawatu season, I had no money. So I think I was borrowing off my flatmate actually to pay the bills, and just waiting for my checks to come in. Go down to the Fitz and buy a tray of bourbons, and away you go. But I guess it was probably in that second season for Manawatu, I was like, things are going okay. What would it take to be a professional rugby player? So obviously the next step was to go from second division to first division. So at the time, I think my mum and my club coach at the time, Bill Clark, was also mum's boss at Field Intermediate. Sort of put together a bit of a CV, and I don't even know whether it was like a CD-ROM or something with highlights or something. I don't know whether they did that or not back then, but I had no idea. I was sort of pretty oblivious to it. Keen on it, but so they sent that out into whoever they sent it to, and I think who came back? I think North Harbour and Taranaki came back and sort of said, we'd be interested. So I was like, Taranaki's just up the road, so makes sense to me. So I went and signed. I think I had to go sign it in front of the Justice of the Peace or something. So I think when I was working at the freezing works here in Fielding, I had to go early to the court in Fielding and sign it on some day. And so then, I moved up to Taranaki and then played club rugby for Stratford. Made the squad that year in 2004 for the Taranaki, but didn't get a run at all. So they had some good players at that stage playing lock. Obviously a lot better than me at that stage. So they had Paul Tito was obviously captain, and Reece Robinson was out of the lock, and Scott Bremen was also there and doing a good job. So I played B's the whole year, which again, looking back, I actually loved that season. I mean, I did throw my toys a little bit that I wasn't getting an opportunity, but I think that was just me being young and thinking I was a bit better than I was.
Yeah.
And then, I was 2005, had another club season, and then I think Bruce Robinson actually moved on. I'm not too sure exactly where he went, but so there's a bit of opportunity there. And then I think Taranaki actually played the British and Irish Lions, which was actually ended up being my first game for Taranaki, actually.
True.
Which, I mean, at the time, I didn't really realise how big a game that was, really. Looking back, it was a pretty massive first game, and obviously there was a massive crowd at Yarra Stadium.
Yeah.
And obviously the whole touring things back when, obviously everyone can tour and fill out stadiums and all that sort of stuff.
The good old days.
The good old days. But it wasn't probably until then. I mean, even still then, I was trying to work during the club season, doing odd jobs. I was still struggling to think whether I was going to make that next step to the Hurricanes. And then, I don't know what happened that year. That Air New Zealand Cup, I think it was called back then, was a bit of a game changer, really. I sort of got a crack in the first game, which years later I heard Andrew Hall actually had a bit of a word in that, saying he's keen to have me in the line out to throw to.
Were you good mates at this stage?
No, I'd never met him until I think this is just after his little incident down in Dunedin with his mates.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know who he was or didn't even know the story. And people were joking about this seal shooter or something. I had no idea about what was going on. I didn't know from bar of soap, to be honest.
He just wanted you on that line out.
He just wanted to throw to me, I guess. I guess at this stage I was, like probably 105 kilos or something, and over 2 meters tall, so pretty easy to lift and easy target, I guess. So I think he had a bit of a hand in getting me that first game against Waikato, and I think the rest is history after that. Things went all right.
Mate, you had a dramatic rise, because that same year, was it the end of that year that you got called into the All Blacks as an absolute bolter?
Yep, that's right, mate. Again, there's sort of stories I hear like years later was, I didn't know at the time, but Steve Hansen came to look at Chris Masoe, one of our weeks. I think we were preparing for Auckland. It's a home game in New Plymouth there, and so Steve came and had a look at Masoe and sort of seen how he ticks and give me a few pointers and stuff. And as I found out later, was Neil Barnes was our coach then, a forwards coach, and he sort of had a word to Steve about me, and I had no idea, but he said, look at this kid, he's got something about him. So I found out later. So, I mean, during the week, he sort of helped me a bit with the lineouts and a few other things, a few pointers. And I thought he's just been a good barger and helped me out. But then we played Auckland on the weekend, and this year, 2005, we had an absolute shock at Taranaki. We beat Northland, which everyone beat Northland, so it wasn't saying much. We lost every other game, and then this game against Auckland, I don't know what happened, whether it was Steve being in town or something like that, or afternoon footy, we just turned it on, and I just had one of these games that were out of the bag. Won like 10 line-outs, stole like 2 or 3 from them, and topped the table tackle count and scored a try, and just didn't put a foot wrong. Like, just one of these dream games, and from what I know, like, that was the one game that made me go on India tour, which happened to be the one that was, Steve was there watching, and I mean, I was still weird sort of scenario getting the first phone call from Graham Henry, and it was the first time I heard about the All Blacks. Was at the time I was living in Stratford with a few guys, and we used to play backyard cricket on a grass tennis court under floodlights. So me and the two boy flatmates, Ross Williams and Perry Tupia, were out there playing cricket under the floodlights late at night, and then my other flatmate, Victoria, answered my phone and comes out and goes, "Oh, Jason, there's a phone call for Graham on the phone." I'm like, "What? I don't know any Grahams." Then it's just like, "Jas, yeah, g'day, Graham Henry, yeah." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, piss off. Like, what are you doing ringing me? Like, this can't be you. Who is it?" He goes, "No, it's me." He goes, "I think you've had a good season. I wanted you to keep fit, just in case." And then, he sort of went on to say that there was, I think it was back when they had, like, quarterfinals. They first brought in the quarterfinals about then. And so Graham invited all the guys that weren't playing in the quarterfinals down to Wellington for a camp. I showed up and I was just like, what am I doing here? I'm like, these are the guys that I know from telly and that. So it was a 2-day camp, a bit of a training and stuff. And at the end of it, they go, "Right, just because you're here doesn't mean you're going on tour." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, thanks for the invite." Went back to Stratford and I didn't really tell anyone that I was there. And I think that obviously the team naming came out. Must have been coming up, and then I think I went and played golf like the day before it. And then I think Taranaki were trying to organise like a press conference just in case.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was told, just in case. And they couldn't get hold of me because I was out playing golf. And then I think they rang my mum to try and find me. And I hadn't told her a thing, and she was just like, then I had all these missed calls from her as well, going, "What the fuck's going on? Like, why don't you tell us?" I was like, well, I'm not going to make it, Mum. I'm not making a big deal about it. And then it's just the biggest drama ever. But then, lo and behold, the team got named next day, and I was read out pretty early. Being Eaton is obviously pretty early in the alphabet, so big shock. Went and did the press conference and that, and then the story is that my mates all in Stratford went out to buy some kegs beer, and there was no kegs at all in Stratford. Had to buy crates, I think. So I think it was actually Labour weekend. Actually, I think it was the Sunday of Labour weekend. So Monday was obviously holiday. So the boys got stuck in.
And did you feel comfortable like doing all this media? Did you feel comfortable being named an All Black?
No, to be honest, no, I wasn't comfortable at all. It was just so unexpected and out of the blue. And I guess, like, obviously, I mean, I played for Men on Tour, and then I did, like, interviews on with the local newspaper, and I don't think I did any real interviews with Taranaki, apart from maybe the newspaper as well there. If that. So it wasn't really comfortable doing that. And obviously the nature of coming out of nowhere and actually being named was a huge shock. So it sort of felt unreal, sort of felt like it was happening to someone else, if that makes sense. And obviously then going into camp, like, was very strange. Like I'd only been overseas once, and that was the Gold Coast with my brother, and so I didn't have any money. I didn't have a credit card. I didn't have a suitcase. I didn't even know what to pack for like 5 weeks. So it must have been strange for the manager and like the liaison people from the All Blacks. Like I was ringing them up, just asking like random questions like how many pairs of undies do I need, or like can you order this? So I remember and then it was like Labor Day, so I couldn't organise credit cards because the bank's closed. I was like, oh, this is a nightmare. So I think I ordered a credit card, but then had to get like the chairman of New Zealand Rugby to bring it over with them to where were we in Wales like the first week, and it was very strange, and obviously like being in the environment, like because I only knew there was only Andrew Hoare and Chris Marceau, the only other guys I actually knew in the whole squad. lead into it. But so that felt really strange, like almost like a feeling like I didn't belong.
Yeah.
But in that environment, I don't know how long it had been going on beforehand, but at that stage, they went out of their way to welcome you into the group. I mean, you hear the stories of guys, especially in your position, that wouldn't welcome in the new guys and treat them like shit, or there's hierarchy and stuff. But I guess at that stage, 2005, there was none of that. I remember with Chris Jack, I think the first week, and he went out of his way to make sure I was obviously getting across everything game wise and all the support I needed, and obviously had like lots of meetings for the new guys, and you sort of get to know the ins and outs of being an All Black pretty quickly, and there's a lot of support there, which makes sense. Like, looking back, it's like pretty awesome for likes of myself going in there from where I'd come from, and getting that support, and it makes sense to. You only get the best out of players if you actually do that, if it's an inclusive environment rather
100%.
than the old school sort of mentality. You got to earn your stripes and that way. So appreciative of that.
Mm. And what was the tour like?
It was a bit of an eye opener. So what happened? We flew to Cardiff. I think we arrived like the Thursday week before the test, so we had about 9 days, I think, before the test, and so we hit the ground, a couple of trainings, and then obviously, as I said earlier, it's like my first time travelling, so first time experiencing jet lag. I had no idea what was going on. I was, I think, got to the Saturday night. They gave us Sunday off, so Saturday night I was lying in bed, falling asleep, and at about 7 o'clock at night, I was like, this isn't pretty good for my jet lag. So I was like, I'll get up and just walk around the hotel, and walked out of my hotel room and bumped into a few guys and thought, what are you up to? They're like, I was going on the road for a beer, and do you want to come along? I'm like, okay. So I went and put up my strides on and went down to the old walkabout there and turned up, and there's just like one of these big chili bins, like a metre high, full of Coronas, and I'm like, this is bad, Cardiff nightlife, it's awesome. And I remember walking down there, and obviously this is Andrew's, he's just got back in the All Blacks from his incident earlier in the year, and he was on a short leash, so he goes, I'm only going out for 2 beers and I'm going home. And I was like, oh yeah, sweet, sounds good to me. Well, 2 beers came and went, and he goes, righto, Jason, I'm going home. I'm like, okay, yep, see you later, mate. I'm freaking having a good time, having a good night. So anyway, fast forward to about 3 o'clock or something. I come back to the hotel, and there's a few guys still in the bar and having a few drinks, and then we get kicked out of the hotel bar. So we end up by the lobby, by our sort of team room, and drinking a few beers, and then someone came up with the idea to go to the church in London from Cardiff, and I was just like, I don't know what's going on here, but I remember looking around the room, looking around the guys, and I'm like, these Aaron Major and Leon McDonald from the leadership group, and Dan Carter, who's like the greatest player in the world. Then there's Pity Weepu and Jimmy Cowan and myself, and I was like, okay, this is what All Blacks do. Okay, sweet. So I remember the actual decision to actually go. We go, right, if we'll do we were drinking Heinekens at the time, so there's obviously the label. So if you drink and stop in the label, it's like in the zone or something. That's what it's called or something.
Yeah.
So right, we're going around. Everyone does a drink, and the majority get it in. We're going. And I think I threw it. I was like, no, I don't think we should go. So I drank short or something like that. But then everyone else got it. So I was like, right, let's go. So someone ordered a cab, 180 quid, get us from Cardiff to the church. But the funny thing was, we had management coming down to go for a run in the morning or come down to breakfast, and we're outside. I was like, I don't know how someone would stop us. But anyway, jump in the cab, we're all sort of in the cab, nude or whatever, and partying and singing, and get to the church, and it's 10 a.m. and the church doesn't open till 12. So It was so bizarre. And then I remember we ended up, at one stage, I remember ended up in I don't think Carter put this in his book, but ended up at Subway or McDonald's or something, and then sort of just waiting for 12. And I remember seeing in a hairdresser, sitting in a hairdresser watching Dan Carter get his hair washed, just killing time for the church to open. And I was going, this is so weird. But it must be like what All Blacks do. And then I think someone sort of realised, this is a bad idea. So they're like, righto, let's make a decision again. But we didn't have the BS to decide for us this time. It was just like, all right, we can stay and have an awesome time, be an absolute, wrecks tomorrow, and or we can just make the best of a bad situation. So we ended up training home and sulking home. And it was an interesting trip home. I was sitting next to Jimmy, I think he'd been sent home from Brisbane earlier in the year with the juniors. So he was like, I'm getting sent home. Oh, no, I've done it again. Oh, shit. I'm just going, what's going on? Like, we've done something wrong? Like, what's going on? I was so oblivious. So get home, get back to the hotel, and I'm straight to the scratch rack because I'm pretty tired. I obviously haven't slept after falling asleep on my bed at 7 p.m. the night before and getting home at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday. And so I had to sleep, and then we had a meeting after dinner, and obviously they said whoever stayed up past 5 o'clock or something, stay behind. And a few guys got told off, and then Tana sort of turned to me, Tana was captain at the time, and goes, Eaton, I don't even know who the fuck you are, but what gives you a right? You're not even an All Black. You haven't even played a game yet. What gives you the right to do that? And I'm just like, this is the biggest dressing down of my life. I'm so embarrassed. I just want to crawl into a hole and die. But yeah, that was my first week as an All Black.
One of the great weeks. One of the great stories.
And then, but in saying that, like, obviously a few of the guys are in, decent trouble around it, but they moved on pretty quickly within camp.
Yeah.
Which I guess is, pretty smart from them. Obviously, deal with it, not sweep it on the carpet or anything, but just move on. And obviously, I wasn't playing that first week, so it was a bit of a nice distraction to get my head down and focus again, I guess. It was hell of a week. How
were all the other boys around you after that moment? Obviously, Tana had a spray, but was everyone else all good?
Yeah, I guess I was a bit more sheepish than I really was. It was interesting. Like, I guess we turned it into a semi joke, to be honest. Like, just to try and move on. Like, sort of joked about it, but I guess I was actually rooming with Anton Oliver at the time for that first week in Cardiff. So what they do in the All Blacks, you guys room with the older guys, and you sort of learn the ways off them. But I remember Anton, he was always busy, like doing a bit of work on a bit of off-field stuff for the All Blacks, like doing presentations and stuff like that. And he really didn't talk to me at all that week. And I was just like, okay, that's just the way it is. And it wasn't until end of the tour that I think it was after our last game, like walking around. So we won the Grand Slam and walking around the field afterwards, and he goes, "Oh, Eaton, you're not a bad rooster. I thought you were a bit of a dick for what you did in Cardiff." And then he goes, "Oh, that's why I didn't talk to you all week." I was just like, "Oh, I thought you was a weird rooster."
Oh, that's classic. But you obviously mentioned that you won the Grand Slam. So on the field, it was a successful tour. But what was it like for you individually?
It was great. Looking back, I guess, my first game was that second week against Ireland. And looking back, it felt really easy because obviously I had no expectations really on me or for myself or anything like that. And I looked around obviously the guys I'm playing with are pretty, the best in the world and that sort of stuff, which made my job a lot a lot easier. I sort of had to do my role, and basically that's all I focused on was getting the lineouts right and make sure I'm in the right positions and the phase play and all that sort of stuff. And I found it actually, honestly, with no expectation, I actually found it quite easy playing within that group. Like it's because everyone around you is so much better, and going back, like, no offense to the Stratford boys, but 6 months earlier I was playing with these guys,
carrying them.
Hey, I didn't say that, Jabba. But obviously it makes a lot easier to actually just focus on your role and do that. So on the side of the field, it felt really easy, which I guess is, looking back, is the naivety of not played professional rugby like at a top level before, and it was all downhill from there, though, Jabba, mate. I held on to that for a long time, made a career out of
it. And then what was it like going from being an All Black to then coming down to Super Rugby? I guess down, and how did you get picked up by the Hurricanes?
That was a funny story. I think we were doing the All Black photos before the tour, and obviously they're doing like the mug shots for the Super Rugby teams. I was like, which team am I in? Like, I haven't got a contract, or I don't know who I'm supposed to be playing for. They're like, oh, you're in the Hurricanes. So that was the first time I actually knew who I was playing for.
True.
Chucked on the Hurricanes jersey at this photo shoot. But I guess going into the environment was strange as well. Like, again, I didn't know anyone in there apart from the Naki boys and then the guys that I met on tour and stuff. And I guess I was an All Black first, which made things a bit weird. Yeah. It wasn't like a rookie, but I was a rookie, sort of weird sort of situation. But I had a blast that first year. 2006 with the Hurricanes was a great year.
Fog final.
The Fog final, yeah. I couldn't tell you what happened in there, mate, either. No, we had a really good season. Again, it was one of those things. I guess it was my naivety again. Like, we had a really good season, and I thought that's just how it was. It was just easy, like to make finals and play well and win lots of games and stuff. And hey, it's not like that, is it? Not unless you play for the Crusaders in Tasman, mate.
True. Oh, wow. And so that year was successful for you personally on the field? You played a lot of footy? You got to the final?
Yeah, I think looking back, that was probably my best season of rugby. I probably played my best then. Number of reasons for that. Probably is a couple of injuries later on. And, obviously I was young and things clicked, and played really well. I think I played pretty much every game, and obviously played really well with within the team as well. That was playing really well, and we had pretty decent side looking back, and obviously went through, and you couldn't quite get the win in the final. It was a bit of a weird situation, that Fog final, like sort of how it rolled in during the warm up, and not really knew what was going on, and I still don't think anyone knows what happened really. I think Casey Lalala scored a try, and that's about it. That was the difference.
Yeah, it was a strange one, eh? Tough for lineouts and kickoffs, were you?
To be honest, I don't really. I think lineouts wouldn't have been too bad because you could sort of see that sort of distance.
Yeah.
One memory I did have was, as I did back in my days, was I used to hang out on the wing quite a bit or out wide. And I think like we're on attack, but the ruck's on the far side of the field, and I had no idea, but apparently we turned it over. I didn't know what, but I just knew that we came up from attack onto defence, and you just had no idea. I think during the game they sent, so Colin Cooper was coach, and then Ozzie McLean was the assistant. I think they sent Ozzie around to the other sideline just so he could watch that half of the field, and Coops could see the other half, and whatever was happening down the middle, no one could see. But Yeah, it was so strange. I guess it was made worse because of the lights too. The lights, as soon as they shine on the fog, it just makes everything bright white. And as far as highballs and stuff, no, I couldn't tell you now. It's too long ago. 15 years.
15 years, true. Man, that is crazy. But you mentioned you having probably your best year, and that was recognised globally. I think you won Newcomer of the Year, 2006 Newcomer of the Year worldwide. So obviously that was a huge achievement. Did you feel pressure after winning that, or how did you feel about winning that?
No, I was pretty. I mean, with that award, I think it's. I was voted by the players, which I feel is the most, the highest honour. To be honest, it's not some old rooster sitting on his, on his armchair deciding who's the best player or anything. It's voted on by the other players. Yeah. So, it was pretty humbling to receive that, and I think it's a pretty good achievement. As far as pressure, I guess I remember when I received that, it was sort of on India tour in 2006, and I sort of at that stage I was sort of not quite cementing the place in the All Blacks, which I felt that was probably more pressure on me than living up to some award or anything like that. It was sort of more just my probably more my desire to be nailing down the starting spot in the All Blacks and not quite being there at that stage. I guess that was putting more pressure on myself than anything else.
And what was your feedback around the All Blacks, especially towards the back end when you started falling out of favour there? What was the comms around that?
Well, the big issue that I had was kickoffs, actually. There was pretty much the difference between me starting and not at that stage of my career. It was I think there was a test in Christchurch against the Aussies where Larkham was just putting these little dinky little kicks straight on me, and it ended up being like 50-50 balls with the guys coming through, and I lost quite a few of them. And I think actually from memory, I think Tony Woodcock had sore thumbs, so he wasn't really lifting too much. But it was on me though, 50-50. I should have backed myself to get it, and I didn't. So I think that was one of the big things for me. I knew what I had to work on was mainly my kickoffs. That was the one thing that was really letting me down between starting and not. So I put a lot of work into it. Funny thing was though, when I moved to France, I did zero work on kickoffs and just swallowed anything that came to me. When I put like hours and hours of work into it, I couldn't catch a cold.
Oh, that is
maybe something in that, kids. I don't know.
That is not sure about that advice, but
yeah, no. I do think there's something in that though, like as in when you overthink something or put too much pressure on something, you overcomplicate it and you don't execute as well because you're more worried about the outcome than the process. Whereas it was a bit like golf, when you're hitting the ball well, you're probably not thinking about your lift off of your club or whatever it is that you're thinking about that day. You just see ball, hit ball sort of thing. Or in rugby, you see the spot to jump and catch a kickoff. You get there, you jump, you catch it. Yeah, you're not really thinking about the outcome or.
I take that back. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Anyway, your Hurricanes. I want to talk about your Hurricanes career a little bit. I know your flatting situation was one of the greats. You had some absolute lads in your flat at the time. Ben May, Richard Buckman, Bowden Barrett, and James Broadhurst, was it?
Yeah, James Broadhurst the first year in 2012, and then he moved out with his lovely partner, Brooke, and then Ben May moved in his spot.
Oh, yeah.
So that was 2012, 2013 season. My last 2 years with the Canes, so... Yeah, it was good times. Yeah, we got up to a lot of mischief. For like-minded individuals. We ended up playing golf like twice a week, and a lot of competition between us. And it's pretty special to have that sort of flat life, but you're living with your workmates, and obviously you're not really. Well, I look back to my student days where obviously you're living a student life, which is completely different. But you're living a lifestyle where you're traveling around the world and playing footy with your mates, and living that dream, which we had some special times.
No doubt. And you were known for sort of drinking during season, like after games I'd imagine you drank after most games.
Yeah, no, it's fair to say. I sort of made it a point to have at least a beer after every game.
Yeah.
There were odd occasions where I'd have like one or two, and that would be about it.
Odd.
They were very rare, I'll tell you that now. I'd have to be bloody injured or something special going on for that to happen. But no, I was sort of just the way I learned to play my footy. I suppose going back to the Field and Yellows days. It was very social sort of side of things, playing club rugby, and I had a good group of mates that started out together in the senior side at Fielding, and we'd always train on Thursday. We'd go to the local pub in Fielding before we travelled. We all lived in Palmy, so we'd all go to the local pub. There was a sponsor in Fielding, and then go over to Palmy and shower up, have a bit of a feed, and then we'll meet up at the pub as well afterwards and have a night out. And same again on Saturday, play the game and play hard. And then it was a bit of a reward, and that's what I treated it like throughout my career. Like if you trained hard all week and played well, sweated it out, and you earned yourself a beer. And it was my favourite part of the week, just to you've done the work and you're able to relax and unwind, and sitting around in the change room having a beer with your mates is you can't replace that. Mm-hmm. It's probably the thing I miss the most about not playing anymore. It's like going to war. It's the closest thing, I guess, to going to war, and you can share those stories and things you've done with your mates on the field, and having a beer is, I think it's not a bad thing. You might have a different story now that you're a coach now, and I know seems like every player that turns into a coach sort of hates people that drink. They're the biggest drinkers in the team.
What were you like as a coach? Still sending it?
I was probably leading the charge. I guess we were towards the end of my career in France. I think they used to bring out the chili bin full of beers and sit them in the middle of the change room. And I think there's a group of us, mainly the foreigners. There's a few Frenchies as well, but we made a point of it to not leave the change room until we'd finish all the beer. And at some stage there was like the security guards were coming in going, we've locked the stadium. We're still sitting there in their planning kit, and still haven't got to the bottom of the chili bin. And they're like, mate, we're waiting on you guys. Can you hurry up? And we've kicked everyone out of the stadium. And I was like, oh, mate, we've got a job to do.
Oh, that's classic. Was it ever midweekers for you throughout your career?
There probably was, looking back. It was a few times. So 2007 through to 11, I was living with Andrew Keith-Hall.
Yeah.
Who hates a beer. We towards the end, like last couple of years that he was with the Hurricanes, we used to at Tuesday we sort of every Wednesday was a day off of a normal Saturday week game. So Tuesday night we took it as an opportunity to get away from town and away from rugby, and we used to drive over to the back of Muddinburgh to go shoot deers and have quite a few beers and just get away from things, and a bit of we treated it like obviously a bit of let off a bit of steam and the pressure and stuff, and we could be ourselves over there and no one's going to judge us for being us. And obviously there was times where we probably took it a bit too far with their drinking and stuff, but we always turned up back in Wellington on a Wednesday, and if we had too many, we'd do a little extra session to sort it out and get back and train. And I thought that's just what we did back then. That was sort of the program we had. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for everyone.
Did you feel that important for you to have to get away because you were such a recognisable person?
Yeah, I feel as obviously in New Zealand as a rugby player, you do live in a fishbowl. And it is nice if, as a rugby player, you can actually have somewhere to go where you know you can just be yourself. I'm not saying you can go there and be crazy and do all sorts of things. It's just, be surrounded by guys, people that you trust and, good friends and stuff. And you can actually just unwind. You don't have to put up a front or, be polite to some random person or anything like that. And, it's nice to actually have that ability or that opportunity to get away and actually do that. You don't have to be doing it every week though.
So how did it all end for you? I know Hammer came in, and was your drinking a part of why you left?
No, I think
maybe Andrew Keith Orr.
Yeah, I think that might have had to do with him leaving. I think I got lumped into that with being his right hand man. Obviously, I was tarnished with the same brush there for a while, but saying that, I mean, looking back, Mark tried changing the culture of the Hurricanes, which, looking back, needed to be done. And his thoughts was he couldn't do that whilst two big players and personalities were in the club with Andrew and Ma. But obviously the way that it went down sort of didn't really sit well with a lot of the guys and the public and that sort of stuff. But, looking back, the culture probably did need to change. I came back the next year in 2012, and obviously I spoke to Mark a lot about that in between seasons, obviously coming back, and I think, I'm not too sure we said it out loud, but it was sort of a chance for me to wipe the slate clean and start anew. And it was after that 2011 World Cup where we had a massive pre-season for the Hurricanes, and it was like a whole new different team that year. And I stuck my head down and worked pretty hard that pre-season, and had probably one of my favourite years actually in the Hurricanes on a whole. It probably was the most enjoyable season, obviously because of the stuff we'd been through and sort of the new culture we're sort of building towards, and felt I played actually quite a big part in that moving forward. And then obviously you said I was living with these other guys. So no, I really enjoyed that year, and we moved forward. But then towards the end, I guess 2012, it was a bit of a politics game that I was playing. I sort of spoke with Hammett about, obviously he was keen to give me a rest at some point during the season. I was like, I don't want to give anyone else a go. So I said, if you want to give me a rest, just let me, have a training or two off. And basically said that I'm not much of a bench player. I'm not very good off the bench. So if I'm going to play, I should be starting and stuff, and sort of convinced them of that, which came back to bite me on the arse the next year. Because by that stage, we had Thrushy had obviously worked out that he's a pretty good player and worked hard and came good. And same with Broadhurst. He is sort of starting to click that he's a big bugger and quite powerful athlete, and started playing some really good code there. And so 2013, these guys are playing really well, and I sort of just plateauing really. I wasn't quite what I used to be, and what I was doing for the team wasn't enough for me to start. So then obviously from the year before, he goes, well, if you're not starting, you're not in the 2022. So I got phased out basically, and then that'll teach you for playing politics. But then I guess by the end of the year, it was the writing's on the wall. Obviously not the athlete I used to be, and not as playing as well as I was. So I had to start looking for wherever the next job would come from, really. So that's when I started looking overseas.
And Japan came calling.
Yeah, Japan came calling. Yes, I think how it ended up there was Isaac Ross was over there, and he dislocated his hip pretty badly. They thought he would never play again.
Sure.
But I see he's only just retired not so long ago. So he's done well from them. But so I came over as injury cover for him and played one season over there. Absolutely loved living in Japan. The rugby side of things I didn't enjoy as much. It's sort of, for me, I was like, if I'm training, I want to be playing. Whereas over there, they obviously got the foreigner rule around 2 finals in the field at a time. And obviously that's sort of a bit hard being a lock. They don't really locks to win games over in Japan. You want big, like, loose forwards to run through teams and cut little Japanese men in half. And I wasn't really doing that. They don't need me to win their line-out ball. They're pretty good at that. So, so the rugby side of things, I mean, I enjoyed it, but for me, if I'm training hard, I want to be playing. So it didn't really work out, and I didn't really get many opportunities to play a lot. So, I spent 7 months over there and then came back to New Zealand, and the big search started again for a next job.
And this time La Rochelle came calling.
Yeah, that took a while. I think and I was back for about 4 months before I actually signed for them.
Oh, true.
I think I had an offer to play for the Sharks in the Super Rugby, which I turned down. And then I think I had an offer from Taranaki to play, obviously, ITM Cup, which I wasn't really that keen on because I felt like it was a step back. But then La Rochelle came out of nowhere, and they were playing second division over there in France and looking to try and win promotion. And they said if they won promotion, they were keen for me to come over. And then they came up with a contract once they got promoted, and it was 2 years. And I was like, sweet, I'll take it. Like, it was a pretty easy decision at that stage to go where the work has only really been offered. I didn't really have too many other offers, so I felt. At the stage I must have been about 31. Still felt like I had a few more good years in me, and obviously wanted to make the most of the career while I could. And
you definitely had a few more good years left in you. You ended up playing 72 games over there, 64 as captain. I'm sure it's more than that, wasn't it?
Well,
this is what Wikipedia is telling me. 64 as captain, is that right?
Oh, that sounds about right. No, I think it's about 92, I thought.
Oh, true. 92 games.
Yeah, I was short of the ton, mate. I was gutted about that.
Oh, heartbreak. But you, in all seriousness, though, you were a La Rochelle legend over there. Like the fans loved you. Like I said, 64 games as captain. Mate, you were a La Rochelle hero. So how did you find it over there?
I loved playing in France. Obviously, every club in France is a bit different, but in La Rochelle, I found a really good fit for me in terms of, obviously, the level of rugby was still very competitive, hard, challenging. And obviously, at that stage of my career, like, La Rochelle didn't train too hard. So, like, I get through the weeks okay. Obviously, living in France is pretty special. There's a good balance between obviously the social side of things and the rugby, and then the city was amazing. La Rochelle, like, I liken it to New Plymouth as in town, like it's a port town. I think there's about 80,000 permanent residents there, but a lot more history than obviously New Plymouth. And very, very supportive locals as well. Like I think they set some record for like selling out the stadium like 50-something games in a row, and
that's crazy.
Like there's 13,000 season ticket holders out of 16,000 seat stadium. So and a waiting list and that sort of stuff. So like they're very passionate supporters, but I found they were really, really supportive when I first turned up. Like obviously we're new to the top 14. And we're struggling there for most of that first season, but they were very supportive. Very different from New Zealand supporters, like a lot more positive support. There's not much of the tall poppy over there. Well, that's what I found. That was my experience.
Mm.
I really enjoyed it. It was so much that I think it was within maybe 4 or 5 months of being there, they sort of obviously were struggling. We were in the relegation zone, and they were like, I had an out clause in my contract if we got relegated, and they were like, well, we want you to stay even if we go down. I was like, yeah, it's fine. Like, can obviously renegotiate a different contract, but I sort of made that decision there, like this is where I want to retire. So when I'm not wanting to play or not wanted to play anymore, this is where I was going to finish up. So it was a pretty easy decision to extend the contract and keep going for, I think it's 4 seasons in the end.
So how's that club turned it around? Because like you said, they were Div 2 when you sort of went over, and now they're probably they are the second best side in Europe now. So they've had a massive turnaround. How's that happened?
Well, I guess it's a number of things. I guess the best thing I've found that I've done is I've built slowly to this point. Even a couple of years before I was there, they sort of, recruited smartly and in terms of players and building up, like the stadium. I've changed the stadium slowly and built a whole new training base and obviously got a lot of good support around the city, and obviously a lot of good factors. I mean, obviously I don't know what's happened exactly in terms of everything behind the scenes, but the slowly built up, good player base and good coaching and like the one season we did really well when I was there was, I don't actually know what happened in terms of playing. It's just one of those French things that, like we actually absolutely had no game plan. This is a scary thing. Like, I remember talking to Conrad Smith, who was at Poe at the time, and I think he was injured at the stage, but he was doing a lot of defence work for Poe and obviously and not analysing our attack. And we caught up with him before the game, me and Victor, and he actually said, cheeky of him, he goes, mate, I've studied like your last games. What is your game plan? I can't work it out. I said, mate, you work it out. You tell us. Like, we've got no idea. But it's just one of these weird French things where, one of these games, we won a game away, and then they're like, oh, we can actually do this. We can win games. And then things clicked, and we end up winning like 15 or 16 games in a row, and just really clicked. And from then, like, I guess from there we picked it up, a couple of years later, and since then I've been, second, obviously last year in both competitions, and obviously fourth. So they've actually backed it up, and so it's actually appealing for guys to actually go to the club. And also one of the best things is one of the better places in France, I feel, that's to live and play rugby. I mean, there's other places over there, really big rugby teams, but they're not the best cities to be, or, well, a bit biased there, but, there's a few places I wouldn't really want to live and play over in France.
So when you mention about having no game plan, so how's your sort of training week? Is that just all around playing unstructured touch or games or things like that, or what are you spending your time on?
You pretty much summed it up right there, Jabba.
Did I?
We pretty much played 15 on 15, like touch. Like it's sort of
true. Like
throw the ball, and then one of the biggest ones we did, because we did the same trainings week in, week out for like 4 years. That's what probably made me retire, to be honest. But it was. I remember the most famous one was there'd be, like the team on attack would have, well, both teams would have bibs on, but then like this player could break the line and offload, and this one had to set a ruck, and but it's just 15 on 15 playing touch basically. With a few starter plays and stuff, but I guess it had nothing to do with the training. It was just sort of, one of those games, an offload stuck, and Confidence. Confidence is a massive thing in sport. So when you've got it, take advantage.
Mate, that's a little bit like what you touched on a little bit earlier around overthinking it sometimes, and just the more you think about it, the worse you get. So that's just taking it right back to what you know, just playing touch, playing rugby, and just going out there and expressing yourself. It's pretty cool.
I always come back to like the lineouts and stuff, and a lot of teams and players try and overcomplicate it to win the ball.
Yeah.
It's just like, mate, rugby is a simple sport. Like, you don't overcomplicate it. Just do the basics really well, and if you do that, half the job's done.
You're going to be a great coach when you decide to.
Yeah, mate, it's getting those guys to listen, though, eh?
Yeah.
You got to text them these days, don't you? You text them in a meeting instead of standing up in front of them and shouting at them.
As long as it's in emojis.
But you have to get like a Google Translate or something for them, though, so you know what you're actually sending.
Oh, classic stuff. Anyway, mate, shit, that is one hell of a career. But as always, we've gone to our Instagram for some questions. Anyway, first question, best mullet in the game.
Oh, best mullet in the game. Oh, there's too many to choose from today, these days. I'd go back to like Tim Boys back in the day. He did a bloody outstanding one. But in this day and age, I tell you what, I think Richie Mo'unga looks a lot like bloody old Lionel Richie.
He does, eh?
He's got that look about him.
He sure does. Yeah, I can see that. It's quite a puffy wee mullet, isn't it? Like quite thick out the back.
It is very puffy, like bit of a afro-y type sort of texture. Yeah. But no, if I had to pick someone, I don't know. Nah, I'd go back to Tim Boys. He had a proper Southland dirty mullet.
Yeah, he was good stuff. Okay, this was a very popular question and a moment that I'm pretty keen to hear about. Talk me through the Brent Ward bum poke.
Yeah. That video, hey, that's followed me around the world and still does. Like any new crowd I go into, they're like, Jason, you used to play rugby, so that I try and work out who I am. They might Google it, and first thing that pops up is a bloody video. I guess it's one of those spur of the moment things that I don't know, saw an opportunity just to say good day to me old mate. Lo and behold, I didn't realise at the time, which is probably very stupid of me, that I'm playing rugby and live television, that there's a camera right in front of me, and apparently I've looked straight at it and just gone. But I actually ran into Brent Ward, must have been about a year ago actually, and I said, mate, this bloody video. He goes, yeah, I know. So I regret that, but obviously, it was all tongue in cheek. Yeah. No malice involved. So I think it's been obviously received by everyone in the right tone. So yeah, I think we should move on.
Mate, it's so good. Oh, so good. Okay. I didn't realise how popular you were with the men, so I've got a few questions about your looks, but this one, did you know that men question their sexuality while watching you play?
Mate, that's first to me. I don't think I've ever been hit on by another male. That's a surprise to me, Jabba.
Oh.
I'll take it. It's good to know. Is that still current, is it?
Still current, mate.
Still got it, mate. Still got it.
Might have been in the club scene.
Is that probably because of the last question, eh?
Yeah, it might be related.
Whoops.
Okay, next one. Favourite court session? Geez, you would have had a few of these.
Oh, yeah, I've had a few. Had to run a couple too. That's some pressure. Favourite one? Geez, I remember my first one for the Field and Yellows. I was so nervous, because I'd never heard anything about it. Favourite one? I'd probably have to go, actually, probably my most recent one actually was with the OBU fighting Billy Goats senior reserve team after winning playoff for 5th place last year. That was one of my funnest ones. I did enjoy that. I was an absolute idiot, but
I could imagine.
Yeah, no, it's probably one of the funnest ones.
Oh, that's what you want. That's what you want. Bit of fun. It's all fun and games at the end of the day, isn't it?
I've had a lot of ones that have ended a lot of spewing and stuff. They're obviously different ones.
Yeah, the more intense ones. Would have been a few of those in the Naki, I'd imagine.
Yeah, Naki. I had an absolute shocker with my ones for the Naki.
Oh, your initiation, wasn't it?
Absolute shocker. My initiation ones. Yeah, this is the old 2005. I did have 2 goes at it, actually. The first one, the doc pulled me.
So what was it, 6 beers?
No, 12. It was
12.
A can every 5 minutes.
That's right.
So, yeah, 12 in an hour. I think my first crack at it, I did 7. And I think at this stage, I don't know what it was, but I felt just after playing, like my body wasn't ready to receive so much volume, and I just needed to get it out and carry on. But I went through a phase there where when I vomited, I actually like scratched the esophagus or something like that, some weird term. Some doctor out there might know more about it than me, but when I vomited, like it just turned my vomit like a dark, like almost purpley, like obviously a lot of blood in it. And then obviously doing this court session in front of the team management and the whole team, and the docs just going, "Nah, you're out. You're an idiot. Like, stop drinking, mate." I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sweet." So then, 2 weeks later, next court session, had to go have another go, and same thing happened, but after 3 beers. And then I was just like, "No, I'm good to go now," and I was sweet. But he just goes, "Yeah, don't make a habit of it."
Was that the end of it? Did that follow you for the rest of your career, or not really?
No, I don't think. I think it was about 2005 for some reason. That was sort of the thing I did when I had court sessions. I think the first time I did it was actually for Stratford. I think we did the buggers there. I think Aaron Moore actually stitched me out that one. He made me do an initiation for being captain for that year. I think I did a twist off, which is 6 cans or 6 bottles, where you do 6 minutes for the first one, 5 minutes for the second, down to 1 minute.
Oh, yeah. And
then, I think that was the first time I did it, and I was freaked out, eh? But I think it only happened on the 3 occasions, those 3 occasions, but never happened again. So, it's quite scary.
I bet. Big, thick purple blood. Oh, good stuff.
Yeah, so you're not doing a proper cordy unless that happens, eh?
You would know. The cordy guru. Next question is also on the drinking themes. Want to know the story around your 100 pints.
Oh, the story of 100 pints. Ah, yes. No, so what year was this? 2010. I busted my right knee playing against the Lions in Wellington, and then I think the Hurricanes left like the next day for or might actually be in the Monday actually. The Sunday I got obviously MRI said, your knee's busted. So Monday the Hurricanes left for 3 weeks for South Africa. So I took it upon myself to spend 3 weeks at Molly Malone's trying to do the 100 pints of Guinness in 3 weeks. So I got through to, at the time I thought it was 97 in 3 weeks. And then actually I think the day that the Hurricanes boys flew back, actually I was at a Black Caps Australia test match, like day 4 or something, and ended up at Molly Malone's and ended up with the commentators and a few other people from the cricket. But anyway, the Hurricanes boys come in and, come straight from the airport and come say g'day and have a couple of drinks. And obviously, when the Hurricanes tour with it's actually a Kookaburra bubble bat, which is actually Hamish Richard Wilson's bat that Andrew Keith Hall stole from him and donated to the Hurricanes. But so he used to tour with that, but he had that in his belongings. And then somehow Andrew convinced Merv Hughes to bowl him a imaginary delivery. So there we are, Molly Malone's, and Hori takes guard. Merv Hughes trots out to the Courtney Place out there and stops traffic, then runs in, about to bowl the ball, and then Hori pulls away, goes, no, there's someone behind you, sends back the great Merv Hughes with an imaginary ball to bowl in a second one. And then he shoulders arms on the second delivery. But anyway, this is a long story, isn't it? Sorry. But 97 pints after 3 weeks. And then I think I had surgery, and then I think a bit later on I came into town for another Lion Brown function with my mates. And I think on the Sunday I said, let's go do my final 3 pints. So I went in there with a few of my mates and got to the third one, the 100th pint, and made a big spiel and chopped it. And then it's like, yeah, I've done it. And then the lady behind the bar is like, oh, actually, that's your 101st pint. You already done 98. I was like, oh, well.
Oh, geez, 100 pints. That is a good effort.
Yeah, I sort of had a limit. I could only do 14 in a session, 14 pints in a day.
True, and then you'd go
I have to have 2 days off, though.
Still, wow, it's a lot of pints. Okay, next question. Is it true you and Hori almost started a bar?
That is 100% true. We got to the point, must be about, we did try and get it up and running for the 2011 World Cup. I think weren't quite ready for that. We did put an offer in on a building here in Wellington, on the proviso that we could call it after our surnames. So it was going to be called Eaton Hawes, which we thought would be a great idea. And no, we had a business plan and everything all set up, and some good friends that were going to obviously help us on the actual running of the bar side of things. And we got that close to put an offer on a lease on a building, and it fell through. So, but we actually, one of our old colleagues from Taranaki back in the day, Sam Young, actually caught wind of it, and he's like, "Mate, I want to get involved." So we can call it Eaton Young Horse. But yeah. That was a dream of ours, but it didn't quite happen. I think we might have drank it dry, though, if we were actually names on the building.
Yeah. So it's not something you'd look to do still?
Well, I'll probably look at it, but maybe not quite calling it that. We might have to buy it somewhere else that we don't live in. We always buy it somewhere in Christchurch or something. It's sort of halfway between where we live and
meet up,
have a little catch up every now and again.
Yeah, that's the one. Or else you're right, it will be drunk dry. Okay, last question. Best piece of advice you received throughout your career?
Jeepers. Best piece of advice that I received, I don't know. I don't know whether there is one best piece. I guess if I was to give anyone some advice, it would be obviously have a good balance between everything. Obviously, if you turn up to train, you've got to have everything in order on the home front, and not worrying about one thing while you're doing the other. So obviously, make sure you got everything in order, and I think you do that through having a good work-life balance. Don't take everything so seriously either. Have that opportunities to switch off, like we spoke about at the start of the podcast, I guess, is, if you get away with your close mates and unwind, take those opportunities, because, they're gold when you're in the pressure situation of, especially New Zealand rugby. So obviously, the main takeaway from that is, have a good balance between off-field and on-field sort of life. Make sure everyone's happy.
Oh, how good. And nobody did it better than yourself. You were the master at
it. Depends who you ask, mate. Some people would say I leant one way too much.
Mate, but you had a hell of a time doing it, and, mate, absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, mate. There's some unreal stories in there from one of the great careers and one of the great lads. I obviously loved my time playing with you up in the Naki and briefly at the Canes. And, mate, you're an absolute legend. So it was a pleasure talking to you and getting the rundown on your whole journey.
Thanks, Jebba, mate. Keep up the good work, mate. You're onto a winner here.
Cheers, mate. I appreciate it, especially getting yarns like yours on.
Yeah, sure. I don't know whether they're are they user friendly? I don't even know.
We'll soon find out.
I might get a few questions from like Carter or something. Going, mate, what are you freaking telling the actual story? And
well, he can always come on and set it straight.
Yeah, mate, there you go, mate. I've set it up for you.
Oh, mate, I've messaged him. He said no, so that's all right.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Too big, eh? Too big.
Too big, yeah. Nah, fair enough. Appreciate it though, mate.
Nah, absolute pleasure.
What a lad, what a lad.